Again, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of time. Right. The all-elusive time, the thing that everybody wishes they had. And so by the end of this class, I hope you totally understand that you have time, that you have as much time as you need, and you're never going to feel like you're ever running out of time again. That is my goal. I know it's a little lofty, but bear with me, guys. We got a lot to go. Hi, Chris. Welcome. Hi, Deanne. Yay! Okay. So the first thing I want you guys to think about, if someone didn't tell you how old you were, how old would you feel? And so think about this for a second. If nobody ever told you how old you were, you wouldn't even know. If nobody ever said, this is when your birthday was, you would have no conceptualization. So let that start rolling around in the noggin for a second while we start going through some information here. So the first thing I'm going to blow your mind with, time does not exist. I know, lofty, right? Big statement. Time does not exist. Time is a created construct, a socially created construct that is brought to life in the 3 and 4D, so the third and fourth dimensions, because we believe in it, because we've given it power. We've created this, okay? So let me kind of unpack that statement for a second. 3D, third dimension. We on Earth, we are occupying this third dimension. The third dimension is the physicality of the Earth dimension. Okay, so humans exist in 3D. Animals exist in 3D. Buildings exist in 3D. Okay, there are some items, nature-based items, that do exist in 2D. We're not going to start talking about all that. But we are in 3D. 4D, when we start talking about 4D, I am talking about, for lack of a better term, ghosts. Right? We all know that that's not the best term I could use, right? But spirits, right? Those who have left a physical body, but who are still on this dimensional plane, right? We see them kind of jumping in and out at times. We can sometimes hear them. We can sometimes see them, smell them, right? They're still kind of jumping in and touching us on the 3D realm, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. So that's where we talk about time, in the 3D and the 4D. And so keep in mind, 3D and 4D dimensions, these are earthly dimensions. When we talk about 3D and 4D, we are talking specifically about Earth and how Earth functions. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Roll that back to last week when we talked about truth, right, guys? Okay, so this is Earth truth. Because again, time doesn't really exist as we conceptualize it down here on Earth, elsewhere in the universe. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to get you guys to conceptualize. Time is bound by the third and fourth dimension. So I hope that makes sense. Give me some thumbs up or some hearts if that makes sense to you guys. Okay, so I think you guys get it, right? Makes sense? I think you guys are saying that it makes sense. Awesome, okay. And so you must be kind of like joking around with me, right? Because you know, we all got here at the same time today, so it's like, well, time must exist, right? On some level, it must exist, right? And so it does. We're still down here. We're still bound by the earthly rules, time, physics, right? Laws of physics we still have to deal with down here. But again, these are rules that once we understand how they work, it's a little easier to work through. And so think about how we all got here at the same time, right? We have events in the lab. We have like at least 10 events in the lab every single week. Well, how do we all know when to get here at the same time? How did all that start? And so the first the first concept that I really like to talk about when we start talking about the idea of time and how time works is the idea of localized time. And so before the Industrial Revolution, everybody was actually working on a local time, right? So it could be 10:30 in New York, and in Virginia, it could be 11:20. Well, they're in the same time zone. Yeah, but before there was standardization, everything was local. It didn't really matter from town to town, from zone to zone, what time it was, because everything operated within its own region, within its own area. And so the Industrial Revolution really changed that. It brought along the idea of a standardized time because we had things like train schedules where everybody had to get to a train at a certain time in order to make the train to get to their jobs, right? So let's consider the concept that we've really only had standardized time, if you will, for less than 200 years. Okay, less than 200 years. A tenth of the time that we have been recording time, if you will. It's 2018, right? I know we have time before, right, AD, or I'm sorry, BC. We're in AD right now, BC, right? About 200 years, we've actually been standardized on time. And of course, you guys know that that's why we have time zones, Greenwich Standard Time, everything goes around that. But again, before that, everybody was on their own time, because again, time is a social construct. And so how do we know when it is in time? A calendar, right? And so I want you guys to think about, well, why did we actually use calendars, right? What is the reason that we had calendars? Back in the day, before we had any of this, what did we have to measure time, right? We had night, we had day, and then we had the moon's location and the sun's location, really. There were planets, right? There's, I believe, 5 planets that we can see without the use of modern tools, right? I think we can see all the way out to Saturn. But I think there's, again, 5 planets that can be seen with the naked eye. So think about that for a second. We used the planets around us to judge where we were, to judge all of that. And so think about how many different calendars we actually have and still have around the world. You know, myself, my family's Jewish, so we just finished the Jewish New Year. Our calendar on the Jewish calendar, we're in 5779, I think, right? 5779, that's crazy. That's a long time to be keeping track. I saw a couple weeks ago, it was Ethiopian New Year. Didn't even know that there was a separate New Year in Ethiopia. Of course, there's Chinese New Year, we're all pretty familiar with, along with Tibetan New Year. But again, these are all different calendars that are still very active and that are still going. So these old calendars, they were based on lunar cycles, right? The position of the moon and their relationship with planting and harvesting. So things that we needed to get by. And ladies out there, hey, we all know we're still on a lunar calendar, whether we want to be on it or not. Our monthly cycle is on that 28-day lunar calendar, right? It's all nature, baby. And so start thinking too, guys, days of the week, right? I know in the Bible they talk about the fact that there's 7 days of the week, but the fact that we have a weekly system that's based on 7 days is actually considered a planetary system. There have been times, there have been regions where they have worked off of an 8-day week, right? Again, these are constructs that have changed over eons and eons and eons. The Romans, again, they had an 8-day system. So when we talk about time, we really have to start considering what point of time we are talking about. You know, I did a lot of research when I was writing this class, and I'm not going to go through in detail. If you're interested, just look up calendar on Wikipedia. There's so much information. And again, you know, Wikipedia is not always like the grandest source, but you can get through a lot of information in a short period of time. I am, however, going to post a couple videos that I find absolutely delightful, talking about the names of the days of the week and how those were created in regards to astronomy. And then I'm also going to post a video talking about the months that we currently use and how that was created, because you may recognize that there's some discrepancies when it comes to our 12-month system. You know, if you understand Latin, there's discrepancies again when it comes to like the naming. The month October should be the 8th month, right? Oct meaning 8, octagon, 8-sided, right? So there's definitely been some discrepancies over the years that have come about since we have been manipulating the calendar and changing the way we record time. Does that make sense? So I'm going to post some additional videos because I think they're really, really great in helping to explain some of those concepts. The Julian calendar was what created our disassociation from the lunar calendar. That was what created the algorithm which instilled a leap day and leap year into our timing, if you will. So keep in mind, different calendars over the years measured our years differently. So initially, back in the day, one of the initial Roman calendars was only 305 days. And so you have to start wondering when we're talking about different lengths of years, different lengths of months, how we're actually tallying things is changing. Another fact that I saw that blew my mind, in Rome, they would start numbering over with a new ruler, right? So they would number the years in association with who was ruling in office. So there's a lot of discrepancies. There's a lot of voids, if you will, that the more we study, the more we realize, this is a little off. This is a little funny. And so we've only been using the modern calendar that we presently use across, you know, the world, the Gregorian calendar, since 1582. So let's think about that for a second in the big picture, right? 2018. That's only 436 years. We have only been using this form for 436 years. And just as perspective, that's only 21% of our recorded time. So imagine you're reading a book, you have a whole book, and only the last 20% is numbered properly. How do you know that those numbers are even really right? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? Right? You guys see what's up with this? Okay. So y'all have seen The Matrix, right? The movie The Matrix. In the movie where Morpheus goes, you think you're living in the year 1999, but it's actually closer to 2199. That's probably not that inaccurate. I don't know how much has been lost. I don't really know anything, right? I tell you guys all the time, the more I know, the less it is that I know. So when we talk about years, when we talk about all of these things, keep that in mind. We've only been keeping track in this manner for the past 20% of our time. AD, right? That's crazy, 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 insane. Okay. And so, people have a lot of perceptions around time, around the concept of time. Guys, give me some of your perceptions about what time means to you, right? Because I know a lot of people. God, I get so angry when people are like, "Oh my God, is it the weekend yet? Oh my God, is it summer yet? Oh my God, is it Halloween yet? Is it Thanksgiving yet? Is it Christmas yet?" Stop wishing time away, first of all, because that's a real bad habit to get into. So what are some perceptions that you guys have around time? I want to see them in the comments. Hating Mondays or hating holidays. That's another kind of social construct thing, right? We hate Mondays because, again, we've put that energy onto Monday. It's not Monday's fault, nor is Monday any different from any other day of the week, besides the energy that we put into it, right? We still wake up, we still open our eyes in the morning. It doesn't change anything, right? A lot of people think that they don't have time, right? They think they're running out of time. They think there's never enough time for anything. You know, just kind of one of those crazy things. I hear this all the time. "Oh, I'm too old." No one is too old. Really? Too old is just a perspective. Feeling like you're always late, always rushed. Well, guys, time doesn't exist, right? Feeling the pressure of a deadline. This is a big one too, you guys. Pressure of a deadline. I see you guys chiming in. Angel says time is an obligation. Deborah says time is an illusion. Jeremy Stagnus says, "I've been feeling time is conscious in response to my intention and beliefs." Yes, Jeremy, we are getting there in a second. Stop stealing my lesson plan, son. Love you, Jeremy. Yes, we're getting there. We're going to talk about that time is conscious and we can manipulate it. So we're getting there for sure. Melissa says, "Time to just let me know when it's time to be work and time to be at different places." Kelly Marie says, "My 10-year-old daughter came to me recently and told me she believes she has the ability to bend time." Well, she's right, and we're going to talk about that today. Definitely true. Some people are more skilled at it than others. There's multiple ways to do it. I'm going to share with you a method that was dropped down, channeled in for me actually just today. I've been doing it in my own way, but I was given a little more visual way to explain to people how to do it. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. Jeremy says, "No matter what time I leave for work, I always manage to arrive at the same time I'm expecting to." Exactly. So Jeremy, know that that's because you're manipulating time. And so a lot of us have a lot of abilities without necessarily knowing what we're doing, right? And a lot of times these abilities, they kind of coincide with other ones. So if we're working to bump one, we're kind of working on all of them at the same time. We just don't necessarily always know that that's an ability or something that we can do. So that's awesome, Jeremy. I'm so glad to hear that. So we're going to talk about some practical tips first, right? Some like 3D earthly tips, right? Because sometimes we can get a little stuck in the ethers, if you will, but we are going to go to the ethers, I promise. But I want to get the practical tips first, and then we're going into the ethers. So practical tips. And again, I'm always going to be a life coach, you guys. So I'm always going to give you practical tips that you can use every single day that are going to change things. I know this sounds really, really basic. Use a calendar, use a planner, write your stuff down. First of all, if you're writing stuff down, that clears out space in your mind that you're not ruminating on it, right? You're not having to like actively remember it. Oh, I don't want to forget this. Oh, I don't want to forget this, right? And so that's taking up brain power as it is. So write your stuff down, okay? Write your to-do list down, write the things down, just do a brain dump, get the stuff out of your head. Eliminate distractions. Technology is beautiful. Technology is amazing. It's fantastic. It's fabulous to a point, right? It's very, very distracting. Something that I've learned to do lately is kind of set a timer for myself. Instead of keeping my email open all day and responding to emails as they come through, I'm only opening my email in the morning and in the afternoon, right? There's not really things that are that important that it needs to be answered instantaneously. And it takes a lot of time when I'm trying to focus on one thing and I see a notification pop up, right? And so I feel compelled to go check it, right? So identify where your time wasters are, right? That's a really big thing. Again, hate to be practical, but sometimes we have to be practical in order to be the best that we can be. Again, write your stuff down. Something that really helps me is don't keep looking at a clock. If you have a deadline, if you have timing stuff, set a timer, right? So that way you're not poring over the clock and looking every few minutes. Oh my God, doing the math in your head. I only have 53 minutes left. Oh my God, I only have 51 minutes left. How am I going to do this, right? Go ahead. Use the technology to your advantage. Use your timer, okay? Timers are your best friend because that way you don't need to look at a clock. It's going to remind you when it's time to take a break or when it's time to move on, right? Anticipate your needs. I was having a conversation with Nicole yesterday, and I told her that I put breakfast in the oven before I got in the shower so that I would have breakfast by the time I got out of the shower. And she's like, oh my God, that's genius. But that was just my way of anticipating my needs. I knew I was going to need to eat, right? And I knew I needed to shower. And so it was really just order of operations, right? So looking forward a little bit is really, really helpful when it comes to time. Part of what we talk about a lot is being mindful and being present and being in the moment, yes, but we also have to anticipate our own needs so that we can address them in a timely manner so that we're not behind the 8 ball. And so, two, part of anticipating your needs, kind of like, so you guys know I used to work in banking, right? I used to work for Wells Fargo. And every year people would come in right before Christmas and they would say, I need brand new bills for Christmas to give to my, grandkids. Because of course those are the only people who go to the bank anymore and get brand new bills and think it's a really big deal for Christmas. Well, guess what? The brand new bills come at the beginning of the December and they're probably already gone 2 days before Christmas. You know Christmas is on December 25th every single year. Why are you waiting until December 23rd to come get your stuff? Do you know what I mean? So anticipate the needs. Look ahead at what you already know you're going to need. That's going to help kind of cut a lot of your BS. Things like meals, you guys. As frustrating as it is sometimes to feed ourselves, we know we have to eat. We know we need to nourish our bodies. This is a constant thing, you guys. So make sure that you are thinking ahead. Meal planning is a really great way to do that. Even if you're not, meal planning and making your food ahead, getting a menu together, looking ahead of time so you're not staring into your fridge and hoping things magically appear. William catches me doing that all the time. He's like, things aren't just going to pop up. I wish they would, though. I wish they would, right? So this is where anticipating the need comes in. So I want you guys, along with anticipating your needs, plan ahead. You guys have heard me talk about self-care. It's a constant. It's a necessary. For me, I live in Arizona, so right now it's kind of still our hot season. I don't get to be outside as much as I'd like to. So I have to, every month, plan a day where I can leave the valley and go to trees, go see grass, go see greenery, go see water, whatever, right? And so that's one of my needs that I have to schedule in, because I know I get a little squirrely if I don't get out once a month, right? You know, plan time with your partner. If you guys are in a committed relationship, really important. If you have kids, make sure you're planning that time with your partner. That's that one-on-one time. And I think my last practical tip when it comes to time is be flexible, right? We can plan these things, but in the end, whatever's meant to happen is going to happen, right? So if you are meant to be somewhere, you're going to be somewhere, even if it's not part of the plan. So sometimes we just kind of have to take a really nice big deep breath in, let go, and realize we're exactly in the place that we're supposed to be, in the exact time that we're supposed to be, right? Because we aren't capable of making mistakes. We are perfect. We are whole. We are complete. We don't make mistakes. We're always in the right place at the very right time, exactly where we should be. I promise. And so now that we've talked about practical tips, let's talk about some magical tips. Let's talk about stretching time. And so I'm talking about stretching time as an exercise. I want you guys to practice this. Now, when I say practice this, practice when you're not like in a stressful situation, right? Because if you start practicing something when you need it, it's going to be really hard for it to manifest, right? So you want to kind of work up to using it in a space where you need it. Does that make sense, right? This isn't something you want to try and use when you're in a bind and you're already stressed, even though it does work, right? But I want you guys to have a good experience with it, really trying it. And so what I typically do is I will take a small chunk of time, say, you know, start with 10 minutes, and I will identify what I need to do within that 10 minutes. And sometimes it seems like way too much, right? Like, okay, here's one that I know that I've done, because I, as a writer, sometimes have to kind of force myself and give myself a little motivation to write in large chunks. And so I know that I've said, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes and I'm going to write 500 words, which, depending on where you're doing what you're writing, probably about a page on Microsoft Word, maybe a little less, but 500 words, 10 minutes, which for me as a writer, it can take 2 hours sometimes, just depending on where I'm at. And so what I'll do is I'll take a deep breath and I will envision myself finishing within that 10-minute stretch, right? And so I will put that thought to the universe, right? Take a nice big deep breath in and kind of blow it out, right? And as I'm blowing it out, it's almost like I'm filling up that energy bubble and sending that into the universe. And so that's kind of how I do it. The visual that I was given earlier from Spirit when I was writing this class was to envision that chunk of time that you're looking to work with. Envision it almost as if you're looking at a film strip, and then blow it up, expand it, right? Those of you who are familiar with video editing software know that you can expand a timeline, right? You can pull up a 10-second chunk and you can break it down and you can look at your audio, right? Because that 1 second of audio has those 10 milliseconds in it, right? And so the more you expand that timeline, the more you bring it out, the more time you have to work with. And so the other visual they showed me while I was writing this, I don't know if any of you guys have seen Rick and Morty. It's a cartoon available on Hulu. It's a little messed up. Don't get mad at me. I didn't write the show. But there's an episode where they, it's almost like Inception, right? Where they're going through dreams. And so what Spirit was showing me was that it's different levels, right? And so when we break it down, each level allows us to slow it down and kind of freeze within that frame of time. So again, I invite you guys to try a couple of these different techniques. I want to hear over the next week how it goes for you, because there's a lot of ways you can use this. Again, like Jeremy said, you can use it when you're driving to work. Again, I do want to state, your car is not a time machine. There are some people who I get into a car with them and they use it as a time machine. Not the case, right? With intention, we can stretch time so that we are safe, right? But the car itself is not the time machine. We are using the tools of stretching time as the time machine, right? Right. That makes sense, guys. Okay. Deborah said, my daughter said, food will appear if you just believe your closed eye looks that way. Yep. And it's, you know, it's kind of the same thing. We have so much power in our visualization. For those of you who are at Bliss, and Crystal even posted this video where you can go back and rework your timeline. This is real, this is true. We have access to infinite timelines, infinite choices, you guys. So all of this is very possible. We're not talking anything that isn't real and possible for all of us to access. And with that, that does conclude what I have planned for my lesson today. At this point, I would like to take some questions from you guys, answer any questions. I'm going to scroll back through the feed, see what you guys have been talking about. Alyssa says, yes, Rick and Morty. There are some really interesting things on that show. If you guys haven't seen it, it is messed up. So there's your caveat. But again, there's some really interesting dimensional concepts in there. Jeremy says, be prepared but not attached. Yes, exactly. And I think that's how we should approach a lot of the work that we do. Be prepared and not attached. Because when we're too attached to the outcome, then we get wrapped up. And then we have a goal in mind and we're not really acting from a true nature. So Callie says, yes, so big for me, and I know I just don't do anything about it. So I'm hoping that this is going to shift some perspectives for you, Callie. Hi, Kimberly, welcome. Oh, you guys are funny. Jeremy, Dazed and Confused flashback. I actually haven't seen that movie, oddly enough. I know, it's very strange. Jeremy says, I had my phone set to the Buddhist calendar for a while, alters the consciousness. Yes, yes, yes. And so again, really the point that I'm making here is if you feel like you are caught up in time, right? Like time is against you. Let's take it back. Let's reel it back a second, right? And remember, we have choices. If we feel like we're stuck in the system, well, let's take a look at the system. Are we allowing ourselves to be stuck in it, right? Are we getting too enmeshed, too ingrained? Do we need to take a breather, take a step back, go into nature for a few days, disconnect? That's what a lot of this is. That's what a lot of those, you know, symbols and signals are, you guys. I'm so glad. I think you guys have really, I think we blew some minds today. Can I get some hearts if I blew your shit today? Maria says, I'm going to have to rewatch this. My mind is kind of blown over here. Yes. So this is kind of a class where you can go back, watch it again, watch it a couple times. And again, I'm going to be posting some videos because I didn't want to get into like so much super like uber detail, but I feel like it's important and interesting. Can Kelly Marie says, yes, time is malleable. Absolutely, time is malleable. We can change it. Even Einstein knew that, right? The theory of relativity, Einstein knew that we could bend time. And you know, that's kind of too when we talk about the Akashic records, because we can drop in and access at any point in time, because time is not linear. Everything you have been told about time is just because somebody told you about time, right? And so if we go back to the first question that I asked you guys today, if nobody told you how old you were, how old would you think you were? Right? Mind blown. Mind blown. Chris Hoffman blew your spiritual load. Oh my God, you're ridiculous. I love you so much. You're ridiculous though. Deanne says, yes, we're allowing ourselves to be stuck in time. Yes, take a step back. If you feel yourself getting caught up, just take that step back. It's okay. Oh, you're stealing quotes from Enlightened as fuck. Okay, that's okay. We'll give Trisha credit on that. Jeremy says, so many feel like time is our enemy that steals our vitality. It's a tool that can work with us and for us. Yes, 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 it's a tool. There's no better explanation than the fact that it is a tool. And so if we understand that it's a tool, we understand that it can be manipulated, right? Just like the laws of physics. You guys, as much as we talk about The Matrix being a movie, as much as we talk about anything just being a movie, where do you think information comes from? Where do you think divine inspiration, where do you think people like me, people like Crystal, people like Lauren, we're channeling information from somewhere. We're not just creating it, right? So all of these things that we talk about that are movies, yeah, sure, they're movies on some level, and on some level, there's a lot of truth in that. So just, that's where we, you know, go back to last week where we're talking about truth and how we discern what's big T truth and what's little t truth, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to last week and watch that. Oh, do you guys have any more questions, comments? I know I don't want to give too much else because, again, I just kind of blew your little minds. And there's a lot to process when it comes to time. A lot to process. Kelly says, I've never believed every movie was just the imagination of somebody else. Yep, you know, girl, you know what's up. It's all. See, this is why I like talking about time, because there's so much detail, there's so much information, there's so much that we can get into when it comes to time. And especially with the work that we do as light workers, as spiritual beings, as people who are connected in a different way, in a different level, time is so easily accessible to us. So once we remove the fear around it, we really can use it as that tool. Jeremy says, so much art is channeled into a digestible form. Yes, exactly. Because otherwise, how else would the humans digest it, right? The ideas have to come from somewhere. Exactly. Yes, Kimberly. Exactly. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up class for today. I thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy. I hope you enjoyed this class as much as I did. I can't wait to connect with you all again next week. Again, my name is Arielle Sterling. Please connect with me on Facebook. I will drop my Facebook page in there for you. We'll make sure that you guys have access to sign up for Stephanie's chakra class. You'll get the brand new version of my book with it. I can't wait to hear how you guys start bending and shifting time. Let me know, tag me. I want to hear. I can't wait. I love you guys so much. Thank you again for sharing space with me. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all in the Lightworkers Lab. Mwah. I love you. Have a wonderful and blessed day.